Okay, we are recording. So welcome everyone. I'm Edwin Rutch from the XR Empathy Circle work group, and this is our 10-week series on the 10 Extinction Rebellion principles. Every Saturday we're looking at another principle, and we're going through the full 10-week series to look at each one. And today the principle is number 3, which is we need regenerative cultures. And our intention in this Empathy Cafe is to create a regenerative culture of empathy. And that means for every person to be able to authentically and openly be able to express themselves and to be heard and understood to their satisfaction. And we do this mutually in the empathy circle process, where we use mutual active listening or empathic listening. And we gotta mute people, I think, as they arrive. Are you able to do that, Carolina or Bill?
Yes, I'm doing it.
Okay, great, thanks. So
I'm not co-host, just to let you know.
You got co-host?
I'm not.
Oh,
at least I don't see it. Yeah, okay.
Make co-host, there you go, thanks. So the outline for this call is, usually we do participant introductions, a quick round, but I think because of the size of it, this group, we're going to skip that part. Then we have a 10-minute introduction to the topic of regenerative cultures in XR. And then we'll have a short 5-minute video of how to take part in an empathy circle. And then the bulk of the time, we have 2.5 hours. Bulk of the time will be in a small empathy circle where each person can participate. And meeting someone here. And then we'll go to for about the 2 hours, and then the last half hour we'll come back into the full group to just report back how those empathy circles, what came up in the empathy circle, and if it's kind of late for you, you can drop out at that point as well. So let's get started with our topic then. Our topic is we need regenerative, well, in XR, the topic is we need a regenerative culture, and I think Daniel will talk about, he's smiling, I see smiling, we need regenerative cultures, the plural of it. And so I think you might actually kind of bring that up. So Jasmine, we have Jasmine Salter, is that how am I pronouncing it right? So she was the previous XR Regen coordinator, and she's going to give like a 5-minute sort of an overview of Regen in XR. And then Daniel Wahl, who is author of Designing Regenerative Cultures, is going to give another 5 minutes. And then after that, we're going to go in and into our circles and have lots of time to talk with each other. So Jasmine, do you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah. I'm, as you said, I was the Regenerative Culture Coordinator from like January last year to January this year. So I've actually been out of it a few months, and I'm strangely nervous to be coming back. But it's nice to see all of you. So yeah, I kind of wanted to start off with like just a general thing about my feelings with the principles and values. Also, I speak with a Scottish accent, and it can be quite fast. So if I am going too fast for anyone, then put a finger up or somehow signal. Sorry. Disclaimer to begin with. But yeah, so the principles and values to me is sort of highlighted to me in Madrid. Hold on 2 seconds. No, can you do this in 5 minutes, please? Sorry, I'm at home.
As we all are.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the principles and values sort of to me are the internal guidelines through which we live by. And so I think this might answer a bit of the question as to how it ended up being regenerative culture, to me at least, in the beginning, is it was just very small what we were thinking of with the group. It was, how do we create a regenerative culture within ourselves, within a small group of people working together? And then obviously as XR has expanded, that vision has massively expanded as well, and the importance of this has come much more to the fore. Yeah, beautifully demonstrated by the amount of internationalities on this call. It's fabulous. So yeah, what is it? Healthy, resilient cultures, in kind of simple. To me, that also means grounded in like a realistic understanding of the natural cycles, so that we can design well. And why is it needed, especially in an activist context? I mean, hopefully Daniel can talk more about why it's needed essentially as like a kind of basic human thing, a basic world thing, but why it's needed in activist cultures as well, is because, yeah, we're putting ourselves in extremely vulnerable situations. That's kind of part of the strategy as well. We need resilience in order to do that as activists. Burnout is really high, and we need to learn how to kind of support each other through difficult situations, and remain grounded in what we're doing. And creating a regenerative culture can help us do that. And then, of course, there's the other thing of modeling. How can you oppose a toxic system if you're not willing to change and challenge that yourself? So yeah, that's the kind of few of the main points that are important to me. Elements that we sort of focused on, we broke it down into 5 categories, which might be familiar from permaculture, sort of based on that sort of idea with self-care, people care, interpersonal care, community care, and earth care. I have a nice diagram, but I don't have it up, so I'm sorry. And basically, so some of those seem quite kind of self-explanatory. Action care, we've got well-being, we've got arrestee support. Self-care, it's becoming more aware of ourselves so we know our limits. Interpersonal care, how do we create it? It's the buddy systems we made. It's the affinity groups, having those webs, those networks of support. Community care comes into it, is something that I sort of wanted to speak to myself as well. That's about creating a kind of inclusive community. Personally, with regenerative cultures, one of the things that means is like how we open ourselves up to people that are not usually involved in activism, how we create spaces for them, how we language it so that we're not doing anything that's, yeah, I don't know, basically how do we make ourselves more inclusive, and how do we care for the community that we're building? And then earth care. All of this done with kind of recognition of how good it feels and how important it is to be really connected to the world that we live in. But yeah, so that's kind of the main points. It's just really important to me, especially as like I put a lot of work into it. But it's really practical. Is the kind of point that is really important to me. It is practical, and it's really important that we're challenging the kind of extractive norms that we're born into. And it's those 2 points that are that really land it for me. And for much more detail, I'm now going to pass over to Daniel.
Okay, thank you, Jasmine. So yeah, take it away, Daniel.
Thank you. Well, that was really interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Jasmine. And yeah, I wrote this book, as Edwin said, called Designing Regenerative Cultures, and it came out in 2016 in May. And I just want to read 2 sentences. A regenerative human culture is healthy, resilient, and adaptable. It cares for planet, and it cares for life in the awareness that this is the most effective way to create a thriving future for all of humanity. And that's one way that I would describe regenerative cultures. And when I saw the first images of Extinction Rebellion basically paralyzing London for a number of days in a way to finally get global attention to the urgency of responding to climate change. And then I saw, the first thing I saw was that there's this wonderful poem by a friend of mine, Drew Dellinger, What Did You Do Once You Knew, which was also all over London. And I used that poem as the final statement in my book as well. So I was amazed to see it all over London. And then I saw the first flag that showed, which one of you, Anne Jordan's got it behind her. I would love to have a flag like that, of the principle number 3 on regenerative cultures. And what Edwin addressed, like 2 things that I really just want to share in these 2 minutes I've got left. One of them, for me, the process of creating, how to action this idea of creating a culture that really is born out of the uniqueness of place and the uniqueness of the culture we're living in, that is carefully adapted to the bioregion that we live in, and uses the opportunities and the challenges of that bioregion to really meet most of the needs at that regional scale. I think that's how we can refit the human presence and with it transform the human impact on the planet by coming home to place, by re-indigenizing, by re-inhabiting the places we live in. And the first starting point of how to do this together is to live into the questions of what it might mean to do that. To really, this book contains 250 questions, and they're just the starting point, that in a circle like the one that you're having virtually right now, people could just discuss, how do we come home to place again? And how do we turn from a destructive and degenerative impact on the planet to a healing and regenerative impact on the planet? And so for me, when I saw Regenerative Cultures in Extinction Rebellion, and then I saw that initially it was very much talking about the internal culture, which is hugely important. How do we sustain ourselves? How do we not burn out? How do we communicate? How are we inclusive? All of that, hugely important. But for me, in Regenerative Cultures is actually the answer of what we want the Extinction Rebellion to catalyze, which is the process of people in place living the questions together. And that's brings me to the point that Edwin mentioned, that's why I think the plural is important, because these cultures aren't designed. There's a paradox in the title of my book. Cultures emerge. They emerge out of the relationships we have with each other and with place. And so how do we engage with people in our community to create a culture that is specific to the place and the culture we live in? And that will come out differently in California as it comes out in Devon. And it will come out differently here on Mallorca as it comes out in Andalusia. And that diversity is actually the strength of life coming through us. So I think it's, and also otherwise it just runs the danger of some kind of slightly cultural colonialism of saying there's only one culture that everybody now has to adopt, and it is a regenerative culture. And finally, just saying that is a process of living into this. It's not about quick solutions, but I love the way that Extinction Rebellion in 2020, and of course the pandemic has now changed things a bit, was really focused on this call for Regenerate 2020. It was a shift from the holding actions of direct actions in the streets to really the constructive, co-creative actions of how do we live differently to avoid more extinctions and avoid our extinction, and how do we respond to climate change, and upstream from climate change all the other, like the root causes of the various problems we're facing, which are not just climate change, it's ecosystems collapse, it's obscene levels of inequality, all those kind of things. Upstream of that is the narrative of who we think we are and our relationship to each other and the planet. And by changing that narrative to the narrative of interbeing, of valuing our interdependence and our interconnectedness in a way that we serve on 3 levels. And that's what Jasmine was saying in the beginning, like serving at different levels of how do I serve myself, how do I serve my community, and how do I serve the planet? And maintaining being regenerative means doing that constantly, asking that question. Sorry for going on a little bit long, Edwin. Over to you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, Daniel, for jumping in. I know you're between workshops, so you had like a 30-minute block here just to step in, so appreciate you stopping by and giving that presentation. So we're going to be dividing into 6 groups, and I just want to be sure I have the people who are willing to facilitate. So the first one, April, can you do that? Does that work? Okay, the number 2 will be Bill, and then Carolina, and then I'm not sure where Martha went. Looks like she. Schmidt, can you do that one? Okay.
Martha is there.
Oh, is she? Okay. And then number 5 will be Anne Jordan. Did you? Yes. Okay. And then 6 would be Andrea or Andre. Either of you. Where's Andre? Can you do that? Can I get a hands up if that works? Andrea, or Andre? Oh, there you are, Andrea. Can you do that? Would you facilitate the sixth one? Okay, great. So before we do that, though, we're going to show you how to take part in the empathy circle. So I'm going to share, and then while we're watching this, I'll be creating these rooms. And here's the how-to. This is the process we use. Oops, sorry. Gotta share and do it with computer sound so you can hear it. So this is just a little introduction on taking part in an empathy circle, the how-to of it. So next, let's look at the step-by-step how to take part. An empathy circle starts with 2 to 7 participants. Here on the screen, we have 4 participants, which I find is an ideal number. There are 4 basic roles, and the roles rotate among the participants as the empathy circle unfolds. 1, the speaker, is the first person to speak. 2 is active listener who actively listens to the speaker. There's the silent listeners, they quietly observe and witness. And the facilitator who organizes, schedules, and hosts the circle. They also do the timekeeping, and they have some experience with the process and help keep participants in the process. However, everyone has the responsibility to hold the process and the practice. So to begin with, the facilitator will start the empathy circle. They welcome the participants. They lead introductions if the participants don't know each other. The facilitator invites participants to give short introductions, for example, their name, where they're from, and something personal about themselves. The facilitator then reviews the empathy circle process to remind everyone how it works. They announce the discussion topic, if there is one. Even if there is a topic, you can always talk about what is alive for you. That is what is on your mind in the moment. And 5, they set the speaker time limits, perhaps 5 minutes, for example. And the facilitator then asks who would like to start to be the first speaker. So at that point, the participant volunteers to be the first speaker. As speaker, you select who will be your active listener, and you can select anyone that you want. You speak about the topic given or whatever is alive for you, and so you'll speak a bit until you have maybe expressed an idea or two, and then you want to pause to give the active listener a chance to recap what they understand that you are saying and feeling. If you say too much, the listener may have difficulty in reflecting it. As the active listener, you are listening to the speaker to get an understanding of what they are saying and what is important to them. You are giving them your full attention as a supportive companion on their inner journey and exploration. When the speaker pauses, you recap your understanding of what they said and how they feel by reflecting the essence of that in your own words. You can summarize, paraphrase, or even say the speaker's words back to them. Even though you may have a strong impulse to respond with your own ideas, judgments, analysis, advice, sympathy, or even questions, resist the impulse to do so because these common responses block the speaker from moving along their internal journey. You'll be able to say whatever you want when it is your turn to be the speaker. Just do your best. If you don't reflect the understanding to the speaker's satisfaction, you can always they can always say it again. Then, as speaker, you check: do you feel understood to your satisfaction? If you do not feel understood, you can say it again, perhaps in different words. If you do feel understood, continue sharing. Again, after speaking a bit, pause to give your active listener a chance to recap their understanding of what you said. As the active listener, you again share your understanding of what the speaker said and meant. The cycle of speaking and reflecting continues until you, as the speaker, do not have anything else you'd like to say, or until you get a signal from the timekeeper. If you get a signal from the timekeeper, then finish up what you're saying in a sentence or two. After you get a final reflection, you can end your turn by saying something like, "I feel fully heard," or something like that to indicate you are done with your speaking turn. At that point, the roles then rotate. The active listener becomes the speaker. The person they select becomes the new active listener. For everyone having equal time, it is good to select someone that hasn't spoken lately, but it is your choice. The others in the circle become the silent listeners. This process of taking turns in speaking and active listening continues for whatever time is allotted for the empathy circle. For fostering deeper dialogues, I find 2 hours is a good amount of time. And this was just a very short introduction. The best way to learn the practice is just by taking part and doing it. There is more in-depth material on taking part in an empathy circle and facilitating one at empathycircle.com. I look forward to seeing you in the circle, and thank you for listening. Okay, so that's the basics. We have 6 circles. There's about 5 people in each. Our topic is what comes up for you about this topic of regenerative cultures, what thoughts, ideas, whatever's on your mind, or you can also just talk about whatever's alive for you, meaning, whatever's on your mind or any feelings that you have. So it's open in that way. In the circles, we're going to do 5-minute turns. So someone will be the timekeeper, the facilitator will timekeep, or someone, you just hold up a little sign after 5 minutes. That's when you do the changing of the turns. And in the circles, start with doing a quick round of just introductions, your name, your location, and any XR group you are. Keep that sort of short, just as a quick introduction. And when we all meet back again in the call, we'll hear from everyone and also get short introductions so you know who everyone else is. And I think we're all set with the rooms. Did I forget anything? I always forget something.
Edwin, give me 1 sec. I just want to say sorry that I can't join any of the circles because there's this webinar of the ecosystems restoration camp going on that I have to join. But really nice to have the chance to meet you all, and I hope you have a really nice conversation, and hopefully it was useful in any way. Thank you. Regeneration Rising.
Rising, yes. Empathy and regeneration. So, okay, thanks a lot. It's great to see you again. And there's also like an hour interview I did with Daniel about the role of empathy and regenerative cultures on the website. So we're ready to go into our rooms. Is everything, Carolina? Any? Oh, and
I think so.
Yeah, I'll record.
Michael had his hand up.
Who did? Oh,
Michael had his hand up.
Michael?
Was that right?
Yeah.
Or was it just a wave?
I just want to know how long we will be in the.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was going to say that exactly. So we have an hour and a half in the calls, and we'll come back to the full group. Right. Thank you. I had that on the list. Forgot that. Okay. We're opening the rooms, so see you in your rooms.
Hello, Kathy.
Yay, it worked.
We
you want to
made it.
facilitate that? I'm going to be kind of doing management kind of stuff too. So if you're going to facilitate, April, that'd be great.
Okay, I have to admit to that sense of, oh no, Edwin's in the room. Suddenly it's kind of, oh, there's a right. And of course there's no right. This is about a place to unfold what's on your mind and hear it as it's understood back by somebody else. So I'd like to take a moment to invite everyone to introduce yourselves for just, is it a minute each?
Not even a minute, just, you know, like I can model it. Edwin Rutch from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm in XR San Francisco, as well as the XR Empathy Circle work group. Yeah, so just quick, so we can get directly into the call, into the talking.
Okay. Jasmine?
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm in Scotland at the moment, and that's exciting. And I'm no longer really, I don't hold any positions in XR at the moment. I'm sort of floating, trying to refigure out where I best fit in all of this. Yeah. Pass on to Ben.
I'm Ben. I'm in Gloucestershire in the UK. I haven't really done much with XR other than some cooking and support, and I'm enjoying this series of things that we're doing on a Saturday night. Kathy?
My name's Kathy Wallace. I'm on the unceded lands of the Blackfoot Cree, Soto, and Beaver Hills, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I'm in the Edmonton XR group.
Thank you. April.
We're getting, Katie, we're getting a bit of echo from you. If there's any way you can turn down your volume, or if you have earbuds, that would help.
I'm wearing earbuds. That's the...
No, Katie.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, Kathy, sorry, Kathy.
Yes, sorry. I'm in Scotland too, and I'm in XR Guardianship and Visioning Circle UK. Yeah, that's enough. Would anyone like a recap? I don't know, Kathy, if you have done empathy cafes before.
I think it's easiest just to start, just someone start, and then you kind of learn by doing. Like if someone, if someone wants to speak to you as a facilitator, then it's a good way to model it. So if someone wants to, I would say.
Okay, would anybody like to start, and I will be the listener. Someone can take, and time.
I'll do time. I got a clock here.
Oh, okay. Oh. Thank you.
Well, I will start. Yes, I'll speak to you. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. I feel I kind of want to give you a big embrace, April, because you kind of came up with this whole idea basically for this series, and you come to each one, we've set it up, and I think it's been working really well. So I'm just kind of excited about this series that we're doing.
Thank you, Edwin. I hear some gratitude and celebration of the idea, the collaboration that this can be used for, and that your excitement at how it's evolving.
Yeah, it was a good turnout today, so I like that, and I appreciate Stu. He's been working hard at kind of reaching out. He reached out to Jasmine, so it's been a real team effort. We got a bunch of facilitators, and so it's just kind of excited that how this series is going, and we still have 8 more to do. So I'm sort of excited about that. Yeah.
I just hear a real celebration. This is maybe, there's a good turnout in numbers. People seem to be really enjoying it and coming back, which is always a good sign. So yeah, excitement and celebration.
Yeah, so I feel fully heard. Oh, there's one more piece. It's always the technical part, because I'm doing this initial facilitation. Plus, there's all these people I'm sort of tracking, so it's a little got a lot of extra responsibility. So it kind of distracts me a little bit.
Yep, I hear that's almost as an apology, just in case you have to disappear. There's a lot more going on than just being here with us. So thank you.
Exactly. Feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Okay, as the listener, I will now become the speaker. And I would very much like to speak to Jasmine. I guess because, this very much, we were rooted in the beginning of all this. We've been there. And this weekend, of course, I've been thinking a lot about a year ago and April Rebellion. I remember that first press conference, you know, where we were presenting together, and as usual, Regenerative Culture was getting to talk, but right at the end, and it's running over time. And just as we stepped on in front of all the press, never done anything like that before, the person in charge says, "Keep it short." Boom, you know, wow, shut down. And then, so you get an opportunity to just share the essence of what you've heard.
So I'm hearing a lot of reflection of, I don't know, you seem pretty excited, pretty happy about the time that we spent together. So, so yeah, celebration and reflection of what was an incredibly momentous moment for, I don't know, for you and for us, but also for regenerative cultures, and the prospect of it starting to emerge, maybe a little bit, get some ground.
Absolutely. I guess it's that the reflection is getting me really present to how much, I mean, I didn't really know anything. It was literally just that writing. What is regenerative cultures? Everybody was asking for, what is it? What is it? And there was definitely a focus on, you know, what is needed to protect and sustain, look after the welfare of those people taking action. That was kind of first and foremost, and that was something you were really rooted in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm sort of hearing, I mean, I'm loving you talking about that piece that you wrote, which I love, the like, what is Regen, that piece that I also saw you posted something recently. So I'm hearing kind of talking about that. I don't know, and just the confusion and the birth of it, I suppose, and getting to like actually be really, really there again, right at that beginning moment, right in the crucible. Yeah, just hearing that.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and kind of that, it was the reaching, it was the, in this year, since it's that reaching for, in me, an understanding of regenerative cultures. And that also was about looking to the past. So for me, the reason why the S needs added to the end is not just because we're growing cultures rooted in place, but because there are cultures that we can look to that still survive barely. Some of them who have survived, you know, a systematic extermination. How come they're still here? What can we learn from these cultures that have regenerated themselves over and over again in the toxic system that we're trying to kind of highlight and deconstruct?
So I'm hearing like a really deep, like a really massive deepening of understanding of what regenerative cultures is, and a celebration of like the time that you've gotten to spend feeling into that and understanding it and growing it, very much in relation to the incredible cultures around the world which already exist, and a joy in the fact that we're learning to celebrate those as well, just within our movement. Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of slowly learning as well. It's not about a kind of grab for learning. It's like as if, you know, hey, we've had more stuff, let's get more. It's more like, oh my goodness, it's a way of living. And that's when suddenly that I really understood the expansiveness from just welfare when you're taking action to actually, this is much deeper than that. This is, you know, the mycelium even below the roots that nurtures the roots of, if we want to grow a new culture, this is, you know, it's got to be deep and all the way through.
I'm hearing that you're really living it, and getting so much from getting to like really, really live it and go beyond the surface level of like what needs to be done, into sort of like more what can be done, what is being done. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I just clarify that? Because I wish that I was really living it. I really wish that it was possible to really live it in these times and these places we are right now. And I think it's all an experiment. You know, it's what I'm learning that gives me the joy, not the living of it. But thank you. Thank you. Now, Jasmine, you get the chance to invite someone to, you're now the speaker, and you invite somebody to listen to you.
Cool. I'll go around. Cool. Ben, hi, because hi Ben.
Hi.
Especially
Yep.
done these last couple of weeks. Okay, sure. Yeah, so it's been quite an interesting moment of reflection for me, having stepped away, and also through sort of coming to terms with, I don't know, the whole XR and especially falling into the Regenerative Cultures group was something that I sort of fell into in a like beautiful way, and so I've been having a moment over the last 3 months, sort of being like, I fell into it because I was part of the welfare group and the wellbeing group, and wanted to sort of, and just because I wasn't ready to get arrested to begin with, and then it became this huge thing, and I learned more about it, and I saw how important it was all the time. But it's still been really good to have a few months off to rediscover my agency in it as well, I think, is sort of what I've been doing. Yeah. Pause.
So I hear you're saying that it's interesting time for you, having stepped back a little bit and doing some reflection. And I think I heard you saying that you kind of fell into the Regen work from what you found yourself in at XR in the early days. And then I missed a bit, I think, after that.
Yes, apologies.
No, I heard what you said. My brain missed it.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I think, yeah, I was just sort of talking about, yeah, what it's been like to rediscover sort of like my agency with XR, and rediscover what it is that I really like, I'm interested in. I think that the whole time that I was part of Regen, it was a phenomenal experiment for myself in just like following whatever I felt like doing at any given moment. And it turns out the thing that I really believed in was building kind of a different way of relating to each other based on care and support that was kind of key. Yeah.
So I hear you reflecting about the work that you've done in Regen, and thinking more about care.
Obviously, at the moment, that's sort of what everyone's thinking about anyway, but it's quite interesting. But also as well, like struggling with it, and struggling with, you know, was I working on the right thing? I did a lot of stuff. It was really interesting with Daniel Wahl just then. And I think that's why I was so, so nervous. I haven't been that nervous to do a 5-minute thing in ages. Her siblings come in and like butt in the middle of it. You're like, oh, God damn, the timing was impeccable. But yeah, it was this real nerve-wracking sense of like, I didn't really know what I was doing while I was Regenerative Culture Coordinator. I just knew that there was something that needed done there, and I just followed the guidelines that were set down for me and was like, all right, if this guideline is going to be met, we're going to need like this many wellbeing people, we're going to need this many arrestee supporters, we're going to need like a group here, a group there. But I didn't have the backing and the knowledge to really bring that home. So then to talk about it as if I had ever known what I was doing, other than just like really believing in it in front of Daniel Wahl, was terrifying. But yeah, that's yeah.
So I hear you saying you're continuing to reflect about not knowing now whether you did things right, or not really knowing what you were doing initially, but you stepped in and you're expressing feeling nervous in presenting in front of somebody experienced, and you're expressing feelings about unsureness about whether you've done it right.
Yeah, whether I did that right. And then also as well, this kind of a like, was I misrepresenting what they yeah, what Daniel Wahl and what was already kind of laid out, but then also sort of sometimes a feeling of like, oh wait, was I standing as like a figurehead for something I didn't really know what I was believing in anyway. But so that's sort of, yeah, both. Just it's good to sit down with some books, as is always the case at present. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like that's 5 minutes. There we go, I can stop now. Great.
So I heard you saying that you've had some doubts or feelings about whether you're representing something that you're actually doing yourself, and and now you're expressing pleasure in going back to some books.
Yes.
Thank you, Ben. You get to choose somebody to, and thank you, Jasmine, to be your listener. There was something I was going to say. I've completely forgotten it now. Thank you.
Will you listen to me, April? Yeah, is that all right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, certainly. Yes, definitely.
I would say to have it that maybe Kathy could have a turn since she hasn't listened.
Oh, okay. I got a bit overexcited because it's the first time I've been in the listening room with April. Kathy, will you listen to me?
Right.
So thinking about this principle of regenerative cultures is really interesting for me. Just so you guys, people know up front, I've been very skeptical about XR, partly because I was very busy at the time, but my issue was with what it appeared to me was the relationship with the police that I couldn't come to terms with. And that was from my background of activism. So I decided that I would act upon a decision that I've made many years ago, that if somebody is doing something and I don't agree with it, but like it's most of the time my decision is just to step aside and let people get on with things so that I'm not interrupting something that might be really good. So kind of that's where I've been for the last year, I think. And yeah, in December, I decided that I might stop being a grouch, and I read pretty much everything I could find about XR online.
You may want to pause there just to give her a chance to reflect, or it becomes too much.
So,
just to give you...
So Ben, you say you've been skeptical about XR, and your issue is your relationship with the police that you couldn't come to terms with because of your activist background. But then you ended up deciding that if someone acts in a way that you don't agree with, you're going to just step aside so you don't interrupt something that might be really good.
Yeah, thank you. So, so I decided to just like read everything, and I couldn't find anything that I disagreed with other than this particular bugbear of mine with regards to not my relationship with the police. I'm very comfortable about my relationship with the police. It's yeah. So that I'm just expressing for you, and it's important for me, that the only reason I'm here is because of my relationship with April. And I want to reflect a little bit about that. Is that's like, it seems to me that it is our personal relationships that make all the difference in the world. And I'm just taking a moment to think. Yeah, so I can't express it very well, but I think the personal relationships to me is where change happens. I'll pause there.
So, Ben, you went on to say that in terms of exploring XR, you read everything you could about it, and you couldn't find anything to disagree on about it, and recognize that you have something different in terms of your relationship with police, and you're just comfortable with that stance. And you also clarified that you're only here because of your relationship with April, and that you really believe that it's our personal relationships that make all the difference in the world and where change really happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I met April through green activism, mainly through the Green Gathering, which is held annually in the UK. So I've just been thinking about, in my past life, I've often been asked to or drawn to taking kind of very big roles or forward stepping roles. And in the last few years, I've made a personal decision for my own welfare is to resist if I'm asked to do things like that, and certainly to resist offer, and to be together with people. For myself, I got too isolated, and yeah. So yeah, that's my time.
So you say that in your past life you were asked to take big forward moving roles, and that's something you've stepped away from and resisted. But now you also recognize that you have gotten too isolated, so welcome back.
Yeah, okay, so just to clarify, that it was taking those forward roles that was isolating me, and now I don't feel so isolated. Thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you both. Kathy, you get to choose who you would like to.
I get to choose what?
Who you would like to listen to you.
Well, I think Edwin's the only one who hasn't spoken. Isn't that true?
Okay, I'll listen. Yeah. It's your choice. You can speak to whoever you would like to.
So I'm speaking. I'm speaking now, am I?
5 minutes. You get 5 minutes.
Oh, all right. Okay. So, well, if it's my choice, then what I would ask is that we just take the next minute and sit in silence and try to feel what our heart is feeling.
The first step, though, is you choose who you're going to speak to, and then we can take that minute. So are you choosing, it wasn't clear, were you choosing me as a listener?
Yep.
Okay, so 1 minute to quiet. Okay.
Listen to our heart.
So you'd like to take 1 minute to listen to our heart.
And what is it feeling? So if we could just come back then to the circle and just like with one word or very few words, speak to the circle. What did your heart feel or say?
So you would get everyone to come back to the circle and then share what it is that what they felt is what I'm
your
hearing.
Heart felt.
What
or
your heart
said.
felt. So you'd like to have everyone share what their heart felt and said to them.
Spontaneous sharing.
You like just like an open, spontaneous sharing.
Correct.
And just to explain, it's your time now to speak. No one else will respond.
I have asked in this time that everyone in this group speak to the circle spontaneously about what message they got from their heart.
So you're just wanting to be clear that you have asked everyone what message they have from their heart.
Yes, correct.
And you're just going to wait until you hear what people have said.
In silence.
In silence.
Tears.
Just to say that it's her time. Nobody else. We're doing this process. It's her time to speak. So we're just reflecting what she says.
April, you were going to say?
My heart was sad.
Others?
So you're really wanting to hear what others are having to say, kind of what their experience was, is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Correct. What did your heart tell you?
So you're really wanting to hear what our hearts have told us, is what I'm hearing. You really have a desire to know what everyone's heart is telling them. And that was the 5 minutes too. So that was your turn. So then it becomes my turn.
I wish everyone had responded. I deeply regret that didn't happen. And I will share that my heart is grieving.
So what I'm hearing is your heart is grieving because you really wanted everyone to share where they were and what they felt in their heart. So.
And I would still wish that would happen.
And you still wish that it would happen. Yes, you're still hoping that happens. So so it's my turn to now select the person to speak to, and I'll speak to Jasmine, if I might. So you're muted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
So the process we're doing here is empathic listening, and in terms of it's a structured dialogue process, and when a person is speaking, it's their time to speak and just get a reflection. So I'm just trying to explain the kind of the structure of this process.
So I'm just hearing a reiteration of the structure of the process, whereby we individually get a chance, get a lot of time to speak, and then someone reflects upon what that person has just said, and the other people witness that.
Yeah, and then now everybody, when it's your turn, you can speak to what Kathy said, right? Whatever, if you want to, it's your choice. And so I will speak to it since it's my turn now. And I felt when I felt into what my heart was, it felt very spacious and very soft. And then it shifted when it felt like it was sort of like I was trying to keep within the structure of what we're doing, because it is a structured process, and taking part, everybody agrees to take part in that structure. And then this is like shifting the structure, and then that's caused some kind of a feeling of anxiety within me. So those are the two feelings that I have yeah.
So I'm hearing that you just have quite a kind of an openness, and you're feeling very, very, very light and spacious. But then there's a bit of a disruption to that, which has brought on some anxiety caused by the shifting of structure.
Right, because we have an agreement to take part in this structure, and then if somebody shifts the structure, they're shifting the agreement without everyone's permission to change the structure. So if we go and then there's no structure, right? If we're going to shift the agreement whenever somebody wants to shift the agreement, the structure, then all the structural norms are gone, and then anybody can kind of do whatever they want. So I have concern about that. So I try to really stick to the agreement of the structure that everyone had coming into this.
So I'm hearing kind of like an appreciation of the structure and the agreement of structure that came in beforehand, and the importance of that to you, and potentially maybe a feeling of that being shifted and
right.
lost of the agreement.
And that causes, then I feel this tension in myself, because the structure is being shifted. Somebody wants to create a whole nother structure, and then they're kind of insisting on the shifting, and then it's like, oh, what do I do here? I'm going to stick to the structure that we have agreed on. So, but it's interesting. It's all good, I guess. So.
Yeah. So again, just that sort of like that the feeling of like uncertainty as well,
right.
that kind of comes when there's like a sudden change to a plan. But then I kind of at the end there was a sort of like a rounding off and an acceptance of maybe it's interesting. So.
Yeah, and you got to learn and grow too. And this structure of the empathy circle is really good in conflict resolution. Like when people are in conflict, as long as they stay within this structure, it really creates a container. But then in a conflict, a lot of people say, I'm not going to follow this structure anymore. I'm going to do whatever I want. And then kind of all hell breaks loose. So that's why I really, that's why we're trying to sort of teach, or I don't know if it's teach, or kind of get people familiar with this empathic listening structure. So
I'm also hearing that like one of the reasons for the need for the structure is its use in conflict spaces, and so by being able to hold that boundaries, it works in that space. Whereas if the boundaries aren't there, then it doesn't work.
Right. So yeah. So it's so I guess I just wanted to have that sense of clarity for everyone. Just kind of and I'm seeing Ben shake his head like he maybe gets what I'm saying. I see April, smiling, and so that feels good.
So
I still feel a little anxiety. Yeah, I still feel a little anxiety. Yeah, interesting.
So I'm hearing that there's some like residual anxiety there, but the kind of seeing the responses of other people is helping to kind of reform the kind of clarity, but still with some residual anxiety there.
Exactly. I feel very deeply heard. Thank you. That was my 5 minutes as well. So it's your turn to select whoever you wish to speak to.
I'm gonna go what, April this time. You right? Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to listen to you for. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of. I'm really enjoying this in some ways I didn't necessarily expecting. Like, I don't know, maybe it's not the best color, but it's sort of those moments of tension and those moments of kind of yeah, I like structures, I like meetings, I like how things work, and then where there's the kind of ripples, I find them quite interesting as well. So sort of just appreciating that and just in its existence, and being kind of surprised by the fact that I'm enjoying that, because I could have sworn by the end of my time with XR that's what was driving me insane. Changes in plans and changes in and instructions, but yeah, that's kind of
Thank you. I heard that you were surprised by your own pleasure at the ripples that went through a system that was holding you, a structure that was holding you, and you generally think of yourself as somebody who likes structure and is held by that, and you even felt that perhaps that was what had taken you to the place of leaving XR, was the constant change to structure and no solidity. And yet here that happens, and that little frisson, actually you found some enjoyment in it, and it was smiling. And
yeah, and I think, sorry, I'll clarify on that as well. I think that it's that the difference that I could probably note is that when it was happening, and I do still love agreements, and I think they're really important, and I think all of them is really important. But I think that was more of like almost an academic interest. I'm sort of having this moment of being slightly out of the loop, generally, instead of having to be the one that's like facilitating or or deciding anything. So that's probably what accounts for that difference in response. Yeah.
So I hear that there was that by you're really the participant and not someone holding that basket, and that made the difference between whether it was kind of light, it landed lighter on you. Exactly.
Yeah. Which again is great, because it gives me some ideas of how to head back to it. And I suppose in bringing it back to regenerative cultures, one of the things that I always thought was really, really important, which is why I stepped out, well, one of the reasons, also moderate burnout, one of the reasons I stepped out when I did was that I do think it's really important that we shift up leadership, and we shift up who's holding things, because of, I guess, also just this exact tiny little minute response that I've had is a really good example of that as well. Yeah.
So I hear some recognition that even this little exercise has kind of unveiled something that you'd already thought was really important and wasn't happening, and that was the shifting of leadership roles and rotation and moving people through rather than holding, clinging.
Oops. Yeah, exactly. And I think, the ability for kind of acceptance of like the birth and the death and the whole cycles of people coming in and people coming out, being a really important part of forming regenerative cultures, because otherwise you would have me still in a situation where I would have completely freaked out at a ripple in a conversation like this, instead of being able to look at it and be like, this is really interesting, from a different part of the cycle.
Yeah. And so this has just landed as a really good example for you in your body, knowing, that the smile of kind of pleasure or just okayness with it, calmness with it, would not have been there were you in the role of that you were a few months ago, and this had happened when you were holding it. So it really highlights to you. Thank you.
That's my 5 minutes.
Thank you, Jasmine. Oh, I'm so pulled. I want to talk to Ben, and I want to talk to Kathy, and I think because it's still so present in me, I would really like to talk to Kathy right now.
So I'm the listener?
Yes, thank you. The silence, the slowing down, the breath, coming to those moments always for me is the kind of the grief, the mourning, rises like a wave and flows into tears.
So you're saying,
okay, yeah.
So you're saying in the silence, when there's silence and slowing down, what arises in you is grief, like a wave.
Yeah, and that's nothing new for me. That's I have been reaching for supports and eloquence and teaching and holding for that for a very long time, and that feels, I'm okay with tears and I'm okay with the grief.
So you've been seeking a holding and an eloquence and a teaching for that grief for a long time. And you're okay with the grief.
Yeah, and I guess not just seeking, but I think it's your speaker. I can hear an echo. Thank you. Sorry. It's just, but what rises alongside in that frisson of tension, and loved how Edwin kind of, clarified, but that holding in that time when there was more silence, I went deeper and deeper. I mean, the grief is ever present, but deeper than that is definitely a rising sense of anticipation, of something extraordinary, mythic, beyond our kind of oppressed minds, senses of what is happening. There is something else arising in me, and part of my engagement, I'll pause there.
Is the word frisson? Frisson? So that's like the rubbing?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said what rises alongside that frisson of tension is more silence and then going deeper with that silence, and that the grief is ever present, but also very much going deeper. And then in moving that way, you feel this rising of anticipation of something extraordinary, of something else arising within you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, something that lurks beyond, in the invisible places that I'm not yet able in my structured thinking to make visible, that I reach for in so many ways. And it was in the discomfort of that extra bit. There's something about more discomfort, and these times are times where we are going to learn to live with discomfort. There's some very, very deep, something very rich internally that arises when we can be with discomfort and not try to fix it.
Just a sec.
Hmm.
So you say there's, it's about something that's looking beyond in the invisible places that's not yet visible. And in this, in the discomfort of that, of seeking in the invisible places, perhaps there was some touching of it, some touching. And in these times, it's times that we learn to live with that discomfort. And there's a richness of being with that discomfort and not trying to fix it.
Mm. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Kathy, for listening. Mm. Oh, so much more. Thank you. It's your turn now, Kathy, to choose whoever you would like to listen to.
Well, Ben hasn't been active, so I'll choose Ben. And he's listening to me, so I'm speaking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I could let you know that I have 44 years of engaging community and circle dialogues. And I'm what I call myself a background facilitator, which is very different from most facilitation. And we were invited to speak to what was alive in us. And so I chose to do that.
So I hear you saying that you have 44 years of experience in community facilitation, I think, and you describe it as background facilitation. Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you are familiar with open space technology, but there's some pieces in it which are very important if we're going forward to change things on the planet. Doesn't mean I recommend the whole system at all, but the piece that I am most appreciative of is called Welcome the Stranger. And I am always the stranger from left field and rarely welcomed, let alone valued.
So you're asking whether the group is familiar with open space technology, and you like some parts of it, not everything, and the part that you really appreciate about open space is the welcoming a stranger, and that you express that you find yourself a stranger in most places you go to and not always welcomed.
So we're an open system of energy. That's what we actually are. And quantum theory supports that. An open system is always flowing, always moving, and it's a complexity made of many pieces. And unfortunately, we've been brainwashed and conditioned by the Kappa's patriarchy to think we're just this one-dimensional left brain linear box, which is a lie.
So I hear you expressing that we are an open system ourselves and underpinned by quantum, I think you said quantum theory, and that in actual fact we are energies that are flowing and moving all the time, and not sure if you meant constrained by the patriarchal way of staying in the left brain, and that's wrong.
And it's one-dimensional box.
Okay.
So if we aren't comfortable with open system communicating, it's because it's been severely punished in us and not supported by people who are left brain dominant, who are the dominators that are running this planet.
So you're saying that where open space has not been appreciated or supported, it's because of the domination of people who run the planet who are more left-brained. Oh, I think you said that that openness has been suppressed.
Yes, when I find today that I still have people who have no idea what a chakra is, then I quickly go into despair and then jump back out.
So I hear you expressing surprise and despair when you come across people who don't even know what a chakra is.
Yeah. So I say 90% of what we are is outside our physical body. And I say 5% is our left brain. So the way we access what we really mostly are comprised of is through our right brain, and that's women's wisdom, which has been deliberately suppressed and shut down. So when we go into the silence and we feel what our heart feels, and we stay with that discomfort and those invisible unknown places, it's not only a richness, like April says, but it's incredible, transforming magic. That's what will change the world.
So I hear you, that what you said was that 90% of us is, and you expressed yourself with your hands, which I took to be open and non-physical, and that only 5% is left brain, and that you are expressing the value of women's wisdom. I think I might have missed something at the end.
Women's wisdom is right brain, and we know very little about it. And that's the only thing that's going to get us out of here alive, is opening to the right brain wisdom.
So I heard you that you're talking about women's wisdom, and the right brain is what's going to get us out alive.
Yep.
That was the time too, so you're
Okay.
up, Ben.
So is it my turn
Your
now?
turn to select whoever you wish.
Okay. Edwin, will you listen to me?
Listening.
So my first thing is an answer to the question that Kathy asked. When we did that minute to listen to our hearts, my heart told me that I was in the right place. And I don't often feel that. So it's, I feel quite emotional that this, yeah, that I do feel in the right place.
So you're wanting to address what Kathy asked about how do you, what's it feel in your heart, and when you sort of checked in, you felt, oh, I'm in the right place here, and you're feeling sort of tearful, because not often do you feel like you're in the right place. So maybe a sense of loss or a sense of grief around not feeling that often.
Yeah. The things that I'm saying are actually addressing this principle 3, which I haven't got up on my screen anymore, but it's about, I think, creating regenerative cultures. So I haven't forgotten what my focus is, but this is what's coming up for me while thinking about those things. And so I've been essentially isolating myself for a month now.
Okay, so you're holding the question, but you're just seeing what comes up for you, just what's arising, and what's arising seems like the first thing is just talking about the isolation, that you have been isolating yourself for about the last month.
Yeah. And the physical isolation that I took as I made a decision not just to protect myself, but to step forward when people that should be leading us weren't stepping forward and doing what I consider to be the right thing. And this period of physical isolation has there seems to be three things that I'm feeling at the moment, which is a deep sense of grief, and right alongside that, a very powerful sense of hope. And April may remember that I have said to her in the past, I will hold the hope for you when it's hard for you to hold the hope. And I do that for other people sometimes, but it's because it's really true for me. And so there's grief, there's hope, and the third thing is a huge sense of excitement about the possibilities that we find ourselves in right now.
Okay, so you're sensing into your heart, and you're feeling a sense of grief, and but also next to that is a feeling of hope. And April has mentioned she would hold the hope for you, and you try to do that as well as hold the hope for others. And and a third sort of quality is just the sense of the possibilities that there are now with kind of what's been happening in society. You're seeing like just a sense of all the possibilities.
Yeah, just one small clarification is I don't think I'm aware that April has offered to hold the hope for me. I've been offering to hold hope for her.
Okay, so it's actually that you've been offering to hold the hope for her. I had that turned around.
Yeah, but it's fine. During this period of isolation, I have actually felt more connected to my family, loved ones, colleagues, workers, activists, compadres. Probably it's the most connected I've felt. And I feel, I don't think this, I feel that it's probably because I've decided to try to not give a fuck about what other people's response to me is, and to just fully be myself as much as possible. And I have been astounded at the responses to that.
So you, in this time of isolation, you've actually felt very connected, and you're connected to family, friends, etc. And that you're thinking what happened is you've decided just to, I don't know if it was just be with yourself, just to be yourself. And that you're sort of surprised, like when you're just yourself, just kind of what happens around you, how maybe a sense of connection or something with people around you. That was the time too, but if you want to.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I feel fully well heard.
Okay. thanks. I'll speak to April, right? Me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, what's coming up for me is about the topic. This is Ben was saying, holding the question of regenerative cultures. And I do think that and see and experience that it's really empathy that's at the core of sort of this regenerative culture. Like right now, we're sort of listening to and empathizing with each other. And I think that mutual listening is sort of a space where sort of regeneration happens. There's a regeneration of the spirit that happens. So that's why I keep sort of harping on empathy yeah.
Thank you. I hear that you place a real, if we're talking about regenerative cultures, for you, empathy is really at the root of that and can really support a lot of the other things we've been talking about, if those listening ear muscles and that something that is engaged when we're really listening, which we call empathy, that is a supportive network, maybe the communication network between all the other bits.
Yeah, it's like Kathy's talking about, take space, feel into your heart, right? It's about empathy is in feeling, right? It's from the German Einfühlung. So it means to feel into. And so you want to feel into your heart. You want to feel into the hearts of others. And what we're trying to do here is create a mutually empathic space. So we have a space to feel into each other's, what we feel. Yeah, just be it heart, mind, body. I kind of think of the whole body because so.
Yeah, I see you celebrating that connection with what Kathy had modeled when we were in silence and feeling inside, and that empathy is for you is feeling between feeling towards each other, feeling the other person, and feeling inside at the same time.
Yeah, and even the listening, what I find is when I'm listened to and empathized with, it actually allows me to feel into myself. And I think, see Ben shaking, right? If you have grief, you have some space to feel into that. Someone hears you, somebody accompanies you on that journey. It actually helps to feel into yourself. So that self-empathy is, as well. So, so that's why I just see for regenerative cultures, I think that the empathy component is really key. That's maybe unappreciated. It's like maybe people think regenerative cultures is about, gardening or whatever. I don't know. But I think it's really a deeper, how we relate as human beings is a deeper aspect of regenerative culture.
Thank you. I hear that empathy feels like a foundation block, really, of for you of these of regenerative cultures, and that even whether it's the kind of action part maybe of gardening or getting connected with nature, that ultimately it comes down to that kind of empathy with yourself and maybe with and with others. And I didn't.
Yeah. That's it. That's good. That's not. I felt heard. And the other part, I don't know, for some reason it's coming up, is there's other aspects. I know there's the feeling into the heart, into the felt, this area of the body, but I see it as feeling into the whole body. It's like, we can feel in, the head gets short shrift. I think it's valid to feel into the head, right? What is the head, what am I feeling in that part? Feeling into any part of the body. I don't want to discriminate against any part of the body. So the thoughts, the structures, the feeling, there's, how structure feels, being constricted, that's also a feeling, and it has its validity too. So I would want to give all feelings validity, and so.
Yet I heard that the practice that we did earlier was focusing on the heart, and often that can be the case. but you feel that empathy is a feeling that can be felt in all parts of the body, and you would like to see a balanced recognition of the balance in all of those, that the feelings can come in all our
Exactly. Yeah,
places.
I feel very heard. Thank you, April. Yeah, fully
Thank
heard.
You. Thanks, Edwin. Ben, I would really love you to listen to me.
Okay.
It's interesting talking about regenerative cultures, and I spoke earlier that I felt, you know, I didn't really have much experience with regenerative culture, that I kind of came to it through Extinction Rebellion. And actually, you reminded me, of course, how we know each other, and it's through the Green Gathering festivals. That used to be the Big Green, and that, you know, it has a history in my life. And I was never an activist before this, but I was engaged with a lot of people who were earth care people. And that brought me to the Green Gathering in the early days, and it took a place in my heart as a festival that had more than just sort of hedonistic pleasure. It was about people that wanted to form a pop-up intentional community that was rooted in how we learned together about how to treat the earth better, and that we could pop up in a place and actually do it, live it for a long weekend. And that that has kind of moved over the years from me being a participator to being woven in with permaculture to now holding a space of my own, a sanctuary space, which is a place where I hold in, I should stop, pause.
So I hear you speaking about thinking about regenerative cultures, and you spoke about that you felt quite that you you weren't very well versed, perhaps you felt, when you started doing this work with XR, and then you're reflecting on how you and I met, and that it reminded you that you've been doing things with the Green Gathering for a long time, and actually I think I heard you recognizing that actually that you have been very experienced in setting up community within the Green Gathering, etc. And for a long time you were a participant, a doer, then you became more involved with permaculture, and you now hold a sacred space within the Green Gathering.
Yes, thank you. And so it reminds, I guess it gets me present to, actually, I do have a lived experience of actually regenerative culture growing in a very practical kind of lived way. And that has also been very, very rooted in my own personal reach for understanding a more intangible aspect of myself that's in the energy work, in the song, in sacred sound, in movement, in dance, in connecting with somehow moving, shifting and transforming the energy that I certainly feel in myself and can place in both feelings, texture, touch, color, sound, that I can move and have agency in the world around me with that. And that the Green Gathering also fed into that. It wasn't just about practical skills, but it was about really expanding your own reach for learning awarenesses.
So I hear you reflecting in the present time about this deep and long experience of actually doing regenerative cultures. And I think you touched upon the work that you did with the Green Gathering, but talking about dance and music, and you did this, and that it's also bringing understanding for yourself about who or what you are.
Mm.
And I think I might have missed something as well.
Mm. Thank you. I feel heard. Thank you, Ben.
Good. Welcome. Jasmine, would you listen to me? Again, keeping in mind, this is in my mind about regenerative cultures. This is relevant. This is what feels relevant for me. Is this period of time when I've been more physically isolated than is my usual, and yet somehow connecting in quite a deep way with my ex-wife, my 4 children, friends of mine. Something is changing, and I don't think it's just me. There's something happening. There's a, you know, there's what there is a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in, which is like one of my favorite Leonard Cohen songs, but he's got it. That's what it feels like to me at the moment.
So again, I'm hearing kind of like connecting this with the general regenerative cultures topic, talking about that kind of the isolation that you're going through physically, whilst simultaneously feeling this immense change to being very connected. And that's because of a change that's happening. Similarly to, like, yeah, the world has been cracked, allowing a little glimmer to come through.
Yeah, exactly. And like, my son has been talking to me in ways that we haven't communicated for quite a long time. I mean, we're always close, but he's communicated with me recently. And I've been doing some thinking and reflecting about that, and talking to very good friends. And so it does have to do with me. His ability to talk to me in a different way is connected to the fact that I'm doing things differently as well. So it's like, I'm just thinking about this really important principle of XRs, of regenerative cultures, is that I just want to keep making changes in myself, and I'm not working towards a day when we can be the way we want to be. I'm going to do that. I'm doing that now, right? So it's like, I think for a long time I thought, I'll work towards this, and then the world will kind of, you know, people will come together in the world. But it's actually this right here, right now, I feel is like how I want to live in the future. And I don't have to wait for the future. I can do it now. and I have a real feeling of that sounds like utter crap, but it's like, you know, Kathy, that's what's inside here.
So I'm hearing that there's been a kind of reopening of the communication between yourself and your son, born off of this moment in which you get to live how you want to, how you feel like you should be living. I don't know. That's always a weird thing to kind of grasp the power of, but yeah, and living right for yourself, enabling kind of, yeah, having expectations that would be something that you would get to achieve in a future world if you did this, this, and this. You're being able to live it right now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's like, and in the small, I'm really appreciating. I've kind of done this for a long time. I'm a photographer. That is I'm a photographer. So it's like the small. It's the really small things, and I'm more determined than ever to remind myself it's the really small things that change the world. You know, it's like, I don't know what it's like, but it's the tiny stuff that isn't tiny, the tiny stuff that is actually huge for me.
Yeah, I'm hearing kind of like a real appreciation for those small things, those small moments of change, and a deepening understanding of the gravitas that can have.
Yeah, it feels like I've gone over my. There you go.
Yeah, we all know exactly how long 5 minutes is now.
I really feel heard.
Oh, could I also say as well, I forgot to say it back, I heard a moment of, oh, you've all frozen. Oh, never mind.
No, it's you. Well, you've frozen for me, Jasmine. Yeah.
We can still hear you.
Yeah. Now we can't.
There you go. You're back. You're frozen, Jasmine. Now you're back.
Cool. I don't know where I froze at or what happened in the time.
You select who you're going to speak to.
Grand. Cool. I'm going to speak to you, Edwin, if that's all, because I don't think.
Okay.
I'm losing track of the order of things, but.
Listening?
Yeah. Because I want to speak about maybe a couple of things, but I don't know. So I wanted to say, I've got a little list here of something that came up earlier on in the conversation, but we've now like long past it. So I might do a little bit of jumping backwards. And yeah, I don't know, I sort of wanted to address a moment that I went from, again, maybe feeling quite buoyed and expansive to suddenly having a like moment where my feelings changed a bit.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is that you have a whole list of things that kind of you'd taken before. You want to go back to that, and now you just want to share your feelings of having been sort of expansive to something happened, that kind of a sense of constriction happened.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet's dropping in and out now. I'm going to guess my little brother's playing Xbox.
You can turn off your video if you feel that that'll give you extra bandwidth.
That's a good idea. There we go.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've kind of battled with and found quite difficult in terms of regenerative cultures is that regenerative cultures to me means spaces in which people get to choose their own way of caring for themselves and the earth. They get to, like with whatever systems that they know work for them, they use. I don't know if I've completely blocked off now, but I'm going to keep talking anyway.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. You're talking about your understanding of regenerative cultures. That so every culture sort of creates its own regenerative culture. So kind of, is that correct?
Yeah, and you get to build multiple versions of that. And I struggle with an assumption that is automatically spiritual, or uses the language of spirituality. And I found it quite difficult to hear. Kathy, when you said that you couldn't, you found it, you were quite dismissive of the idea that people wouldn't have heard of chakras. But I feel that, particularly in regenerative cultures, it's really important that if people want to access their connection to caring and their connection to the land through different methods and different language other than just the spiritual, that they are allowed to do that. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing there is that the care, I think you brought it up before, the care is very important to you, like a quality of care, and you want to have sort of an openness that people can have sort of reach that sense of care through whatever routes that they want, spiritual or otherwise. Did I get that? Are you still there?
No, I did cut off for a minute, but I think I got you. But I'll add also, connection to like the earth and natural practices as well. And so for me, that is creativity. As I mentioned before, that's my access to what I know is a similar experience when I've spoken to people when they're various forms of spirituality. And that's where my understanding of it comes from. And so that was a moment for me earlier on where I went from feeling quite open in this space to suddenly closing down again, because of it's a thing that I've struggled with throughout kind of being a part of regenerative cultures and coming to understand the meaning of it, knowing that for me is a piece that is quite important but is understood very differently to other people.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm getting this, but it's it's like coming to this quality of care. You can come to it through different routes. So you can come to it through a spirituality, but you can also, and you come to it through creativity. And you would like sort of an openness about how you come to this quality of care, be it creativity or through nature or through spirituality. And that you felt some constriction when it was like, oh, just spirituality brings us to this quality of care. I don't know, am I getting?
Yeah. And I think just to kind of that's something that I'd come up against, that I'd experienced a lot of it within XR, an assumption of spirit,
So within XR, you've come up against this quality of, oh, you only come to this quality of care through spirituality, and that kind of created a feeling of constriction for you, maybe not an openness that you would like.
Yeah, I would maybe kind of care not necessarily being the right word in all of those situations, but interconnectedness. Interconnectedness that then leads to care naturally.
Oh, okay. So there's different ways of coming to interconnectedness, sort of a feeling of interconnectedness, and when and the different routes to that, then that interconnectedness leads to a quality of care. And you would just like a sort of an openness to how do you come to that quality of interconnectedness and hence care.
Yeah.
It was 5 minutes too, so just.
Cool. Sort of. I think it's not quite it, but
okay.
But yes, getting near.
It's getting near. It's not quite there, but we've run out of time. So if we have more, yeah. So okay, well, it's I get then it's my turn just to hold the time. Thanks. I speak to Kathy, and then it's going to be just 5 minutes, and then we're going to go back to the full room. Okay, would you listen, Kathy? Be my listener. Okay, great. Well, I've really been enjoying this circle. I wish we had more time. I know that Jasmine didn't feel quite heard, but you know, I like two. We have had about an hour and a half for this. You know, 2 hours would be really good to really. But then even then, it's like we need like a couple, you know, more hours. You know, 4 hours, 5 hours to really dig in. So little regret that it's coming to a close.
So you've been enjoying this, and you regret that it wasn't longer, so we could dig in more deeply.
Yeah, and you had said, no, Kathy, you said, oh, that you're often not accepted in groups and so forth. That and I'm glad that you're here. I love hearing what you are saying. You know, I really appreciate that, and I think that's part of the empathy circle. Is everyone has their 5 minutes during their time to say whatever they want. It's like you can. Just share whatever's alive for you wherever your feelings are. So, and I appreciate everyone's sharing.
So you talked about how I've sometimes not been accepted in circles and groups, and that you're glad that I'm here, and thank you for that, and that you feel that in the 5 minutes we have in these empathy circles, we should be able to share freely what we want.
Yeah, and I have been to some other XR groups that are very facilitated, and it's like, oh yeah, now share your ideas, and someone you share, but then the facilitator almost like changes everything around. They turn it into their kind of a thing. And anyway, when you initially shared some frustration about other groups, I kind of resonated with that too, and so. I guess I just wanted to share that too, that I feel that frustration of how different groups are structured, that sometimes it's like they're very facilitator led. It's like the facilitator is the total leader. They kind of control the whole thing. And in the empathy circle, really, if everybody just sort of sticks to the process, you don't even need a facilitator because everybody's kind of at this equal level. So I guess I'm just kind of making a plug for the empathy circle as being mutually, a sense of peers, so.
So you're saying that with empathy circles, it's about everyone being peers, and that we really don't need a facilitator. So the circle itself runs things, and that you have felt frustration in other groups in XR where you've really felt a lot of structuring and control by the facilitator, leading it and controlling it and structuring it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different processes. This is the one that I'm sort of excited about, and I am noticing. I'm also keeping track of time. So we have 1 minute. I'm going to hit the close all room button. So we have 1 minute before we're all brought back together into the full group. So just lets you know that. And I also just want to share my appreciation for everyone taking part in this.
So you have talked about how there's many processes we could use, and you're really excited about the empathy circles. And you really appreciate everyone in this circle. And I really appreciate everyone in this circle. For the first time, finally, I see something that is working.
Big hug. Group hug.
Yeah. How do we do group hug?
I could do this for more hours. There's so much more to say. I've so enjoyed the conversation. I could just, I wish we had longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 seconds.
Yay!
Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks, Ben, April, Kathy.
Thanks,
See you in the main room.
Ó, Joana, quando fizeres isto, liga isto.
If I unmute myself, I think everybody's back. So we want to go now just around, take a minute or so for everyone to just share sort of how was the group? Any insights, any learnings about regenerative culture that you'd like to share? Maybe people are still popping in. And there was a few people, I think, that came late, so you were in the waiting room, so sorry about that. If you don't come within the first 20 minutes, you end up in this waiting room in sort of like a form of purgatory or something, so just waiting there. I try to message people, but sometimes I can't get to it. Bill, would you be willing to just go around and select people just to share, like 1 minute, just to share any? You're muted.
Got it. Okay. All right.
If you're off camera, somebody just mentioned off camera because of poor connection, that's fine.
Okay. So I'll try to be as thorough as I possibly can here. Sabina, could you give us your feedback?
Oh, and one thing is when you start, say your name, your location, and if you're part of it, any XR group. Because usually we do that at the beginning, but we didn't have time for that. So then continue, yeah.
So, my name is Sabina. I come from Rome, Italy. And my group is XR Rome International. And it's an English-speaking community. Unfortunately, I didn't do the exercise because I was not in the waiting room. I was inside. So, but I'm very happy to be with all of you. And maybe next time.
Okay. And Jamie.
Oh, myself, sorry. Yeah, I'm Jamie. I'm from Ireland, so I'm in ex-Ireland. I'm also in Global, and yeah, I spent a little bit of time in Purgatory with Sabine, but before that I was in. Yeah, so I suppose I kind of had like issues with like kind of sort of managing preconceptions of what I brought to the circle. And then also I found it hard not to like moderate what I was saying quite a lot. Yeah, so kind of, I guess, stuff to take away for myself of like managing my expectations, I guess, of, yeah, managing my expectations.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Nicole?
Hi, I'm Nicole from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I'm part of the local Calgary XR, as well as having affiliation with the Edmonton XR further north. And I have a regenerative culture life's work called Awakening the Village. And I'm so grateful to have been here today. So often I'm the one who's holding space and empathetically listening to others without really getting a turn. And I just got such a deliciously wonderful experience of being heard and getting to also hear others, and so much emerged from it. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Maury?
Hi, I'm Maury Bean. I'm from Hastings-on-Hudson, New York, about a 35-minute train ride under normal circumstances to Grand Central Station. And as far as, I guess I'm a member of XR New York, but I think I'm like the Christian that just does Easter and Christmas service. I really haven't participated very much in the activities as such, singing in the choir and certainly not preaching. And but I too am grateful for being here. And I certainly support what XR is doing and really appreciate the mandala that you put together that does talk about the seasons of life and the seasons of change. And that's been a wonderful guide for me. So thanks very much for all you do. All we
Great.
do.
Oh, thanks for coming, Maury. We appreciate your participation. Andre?
I'm Andre. I am in Johannesburg, South Africa. My XR engagement at the moment is mostly with global support, where I'm in the Regenerative Cultures work group with Carolina, and I also work in a systems development project and a little bit of media and messaging. Our group, our breakaway, it felt like it was actually quite intense in a very subtle way. It feels to me like a lot of what was heard was actually the stuff in the spaces between what was said, which is a rare thing, and feels like a very healthy thing, quite apart from the wonderful value of being able to challenge ourselves in terms of what we actually understand regenerative culture as being. And I think part of what was interesting about our conversations was that we challenged each other a little bit on some of what we were saying. And in that process, we were getting to sense some of what is actually healthy in the cultures and the identities and the realities we live in at the moment, at the same time as wanting to do a bit of a reset and the regenerative culture of trying to find ways of growing into something new and different, something that's healthier and more expansive, in addition to focusing on what needs doing. So there was a lot of that kind of dealing with that tension for us, which was wonderful. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Andre. Laura?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Schmidt. I am in Western Nebraska in the United States. This is actually my first XR event at all because I live pretty rurally and we don't have anything. The closest XR group would be about 3 hours from here. So I've watched you from afar and admired your work, and I run the Good Grief Network. And so we do a lot of presencing with each other, and we do a 10-step process. This was my first entry into the active listening and repeating back what we heard somebody say, and it was a really powerful and profound experience. We started in our little group with 5 and went down to 3, and so it feels really intimate. I'm really blown away by the process and grateful to be here today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura. Ben.
Yeah, I'm Ben, and I'm in Gloucestershire in the UK. So this is the 3rd time of doing empathy circles. I'm quite experienced with co-counseling and things like that, but I found this to be a really powerful tool with the reflection back. I haven't experienced that before, and this seems like a really powerful tool. And certainly 2 of the 3 weeks there's been some conflict in the group, which I would normally try to avoid at all costs. And it's been very interesting and liberating.
Great, thanks, Ben. April.
Oh, yes, I'm April. I'm in Scotland in the UK. I work with Guardianship and Visioning Circle for XR UK. And this has just been, yes, so rich. I wish that I could have another few hours of conversation. It's just scratched the surface. And of course, how could it not? It's regenerative cultures. There's so much of it. I just love the depth of conversation that we can have. And in this case, some real experiential feeling into things. And that was a real embodied practice of regenerative cultures for me. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Oops, everything changed. All right, Sinead.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'm not in a wonderfully regenerative place at the moment. Oh, sorry. My name's Sinead. I'm in Ireland. I'm with the Regen Circle in Ireland, and yeah, as well as probably guardianship and maybe a bit of SOS here and there, and a bit of strategy, and bit of burnout, and yeah, I'm struggling with it, and at the same time, yeah, I'm grateful that this space exists, and this kind of space that it just exists, I guess, gives me some kind of hope. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Katie.
You mean Kathy?
Kate, no, sorry, Katie Fessel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm with XR Tewkesbury in Gloucestershire in the UK. I'm very interested in the regen side of XR. I really enjoyed the conversation. We talked quite a lot about mind-body split in Western culture, and how we start to, when we're in conversations like we were, we start to feel more in our bodies and the importance of that. And we were actually experiencing regen in the sense that that was happening to us while we were dialoguing. And it was fascinating conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Carolina.
I'm sorry. My name is Karolina Kubiak. I'm in Poland, Central Europe, and I am a member of local XR group, also global support Regenerative Cultures working group with Andre, and also Empathy Circle team. And today, we were talking a lot about the process we are participating in right here, right now, and also about what we want to change in our background, social background, wherever we are. It was kind of talking about inner and outer work we want to do. And what I'm taking with me from this talk is probably that we are creating space that strengthen us to do something in other places. That's what Empathy Circle is, kind of help us to be more strong and doing things in other places. That's my feeling. And it's about regenerative culture.
Great. Thank you, Carolina. Kathy Wallace, Alberta. There we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm from the evil tar sands and belong to the Edmonton group for Extinction Rebellion. So we had a sweet dialogue, and for me, it achieved the goal in dialogue. I've spent 44 years facilitating community circles. So it felt like a really safe space where we really shared honestly. And I felt everyone feeling into and moving into wholeness and completion through the sharing. And we collectively moved and evolved through each other into a new place of wholeness. And it had everything to do with experiential feeling, connecting with the heart and speaking to what the heart had to say. I'm just very grateful to everyone in the circle.
Great, thank you. Marguerite.
Yeah, I felt it was quite complex, some of the things we discussed. Yes, and I thought I made a mistake this time. I thought I tried to write notes, and I felt it was better previously when I just tried to keep it in my memory. So I think next time I won't write notes. I'll try, even if you don't reflect back everything. Somehow the notes, I felt, kept me distant from what the person was saying. I was writing rather than listening. But I think these empathy circles are great. So thank you.
Thank you, Marguerite. All right, Michael?
My name is Michael Schmidt.
Oh, Michelle,
And
sorry.
Michael is fine. But actually, my name is Michael. I live in Frankfurt, Germany. I'm in Regenerative Culture nationwide in Germany, and the pandemic gave me the chance to open my connection to the global XR world. What came with me is this word reflecting and what it does by this wisdom of the circle, of this close connection we had, to understand what is regenerative, what is generative, like in a way that I've never thought about it before, which might be obvious, and at the same time it comes from this whole wisdom of everyone and the different perspectives of the people. And that's what I love about sharing, that we have so much more wisdom when we come together. Thank you.
No, thank you. Anne.
Yeah, that was quite a remarkable experience, really. We had a group of 5, and unfortunately we lost someone, probably tech issues, but it was a great sharing, and it wasn't long enough. It would just, I want to do more of these on the Regen. It seems so rich and so core to what we're doing that I think we should intersperse all of the principles with an extra Regen, personally.
Great, thank you, Anne. Okay, Rebecca. You there, Rebecca? You're muted? Oh, okay. All right, moving on. I see D, just the lowercase d. Are you still with us?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
Can you
good.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm in Portugal. Yeah, I'm Diana. I've been in a few circles before. I'm not directly into any XR movement, although I feel quite connected. I'm very attentive to what XR is doing, and I have personal connections with XR, but I'm in so many things that it's just one of me. Yeah, this was a very deep and rich conversation. I feel quite grateful. It brought me into linking different things that I usually don't link together, and that was quite rewarding and interesting. And I really appreciate my colleagues of the small group. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Diana. Alexandra.
Hello, I'm speaking from Lisbon, Portugal. It's my second time in these groups. I'm working in Extinction, Rebellion, regenerative groups in Lisbon. Now we are very, things are very, we're not working almost because of this situation. And it was really great to engage today with some fantastic people. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Oh, great to have you, Alexandra. Welcome. Okay, and I believe Sabina, you did have I think my screen has kind of shifted several times. So Sabina, I believe you did have a chance to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And I'll just
Can we try with Rebecca?
Yeah, I was going to try Rebecca one more time, Rebecca, in case she had to go. Can you hear us, Rebecca?
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
Hey, sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, and my video is not on either. There we go, that's better. I felt it was a really interesting, intellectually interesting, but also tiring experience. I was also quite concerned that we had somebody in her group who didn't was new to the. I mean, it's the first time I've been to this, been into an empathy circle, but was quite new to XR, and I was really appreciative of the way the facilitator invited her into the space, but did it in a really gentle way, so that she didn't feel like she had to contribute if she or to speak if she didn't want to. Sorry. It was really. I feel like we also have an issue perhaps in the XR that we are effectively othering by the language that we use, and even the word othering isn't really recognized in lots of circles. So we might need to be conscious of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. Well, my reflection is that I'm really appreciative of everybody putting the energy in. I love meeting new people. I'm constantly, encouraged and to be creative. And I find that as I do this more and more, my own defense, my own old defense mechanisms tend to just kind of fall away, and I'm come to a much better place. So I want to express my appreciation to all of you for helping me in my process. And then I'll turn it back to you, Edwin.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, so I'm from the XR Empathy Circle work group, and I invite, if you're not part of that, I invite you to join. There's probably links in the event page somewhere, as well as I'm in XR San Francisco, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. In our group, I felt that we talked about felt experience. Someone brought up, sort of connecting into felt experience, which I thought really helped sort of ground our discussion. Made it sort of go deeper into the body, and appreciated that. I felt we probably needed another hour or two, because we're just, April, Ben, right? Just really felt like we were kind of starting to get into something deeper. So it really needed that. Maybe we'll do a marathon sometime, like a 8-hour empathy circle marathon. I think it'd be a fun kind of a project after this one is over. I talked about mutual empathy as being core to regeneration. So I think if you experience being listened to, it sort of unfolds. We sort of regenerate our energy when we're heard by others. So for me, that was a kind of a core part that I wanted to get across. So for next steps, we're meeting again next week. We'll be looking at principle number 3. Next week, that's 4. Thank you. I see that shaking of the head. Yeah, Andre. Principle number 4. And then next Friday, we have an empathy circle at the same time on mutual support around the COVID-19, pandemic. And then after that, we have a facilitators, empathy circle facilitators support group that many people here are part of. You can join that if you're wanting to facilitate, because now that you've done, 1 or 2 circles, you can, with this, you have some instructions, there on the website on how to facilitate it. You're able to facilitate simple ones without too much, conflict in them. But this process is really a lifelong journey, to really learn how to deepen that empathic way of being. It get better and better. I'm still learning, and ask my partner about that. And so next steps, invite friends. If you're part of an XR group, maybe have them post this event to their Facebook page, post to your Facebook. You can go in and invite friends, and I hope you'll kind of help, spread the word and kind of spread this practice throughout XR. So with that, thank you for hanging in there for the extra half an hour. So really, thanks for that dedication. I want to thank you all, and look forward to seeing you next week too. So thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Edwin.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We challenge ourselves and the toxic system. That's next week.
Oh, that sounds good. That'll get some interest.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody.